Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Anyekolo. Now, the distinctive artwork of Nigeria's Jacqueline Suowari continues to attract immense national and international attention. Her unique style involves the use of a ballpoint pen, ink and acrylic on paper. With these basic tools, she weaves a fascinating narrative around each piece she produces, creating rich, intricate portraits influenced by her own experiences as well as those of numerous others, especially women, many of them optimistic and self-assured. She's part of a new group of Nigerian and African artists whose works are being celebrated around the world, with a huge surge in international interest in the quality, technique and talents that they bring to contemporary African art. Take a brief look at some of Jacqueline Suowari's unique works created with a ballpoint pen. And the talented Jacqueline Suowari joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
How revolutionary would you say your art and the way you make it is? Because, I mean, it's a remarkable style, isn't it? Working with your everyday biro or ballpoint pen to create some amazing artwork.
Well, I wouldn't say revolutionary. I would say maybe
Unique.
unique. Yes, unique. Because
A lot of people are getting into this now, so it's not sort of...
a lot of people are getting into drawing, but most people are still afraid to use the ballpoint pen because most people are afraid of making mistakes.
Right.
And when you make mistakes with a ballpoint pen, especially if you're doing something that large scale that I do, then you have to start all over again. So working with a ballpoint pen is actually quite challenging, but I like challenges, and I love the fact that you know, mistakes are what makes what makes life beautiful.
Yeah, it's a learning experience.
Mistakes make life beautiful, and sometimes.
But that's not why you chose a ballpoint.
No, that's
pen,
not why I chose a ballpoint
right,
pen.
okay.
I chose a ballpoint pen because of the contrast that it allows me produce with my work. I love, you know, the play of light and shade and the shadows. You know, the way light hits the skin, especially the African skin, and all that. But the fact that people who see my work and ask me, don't you make mistakes, you know? And I'm like, there are mistakes in this work, like a lot of mistakes.
Well, I have to say, it looks so perfect.
Only I can see the mistakes.
Well, I'm sure you can. I suppose we all do. If you're in this kind of thing, you think, oh my God, I didn't quite do it.
Yeah.
You know, it always reminds me of a bit of a deviation, Michael Jackson, when he did Motown 25th, and he introduced the moonwalk.
Yeah.
And he wanted to stand on his toes just for 2 or 3 seconds, but he did it for half a second. And nobody noticed, but he beat himself continuously. Why didn't I do this?
Yeah.
But when you create these works, are you in conversation with them as they become more real? Is there a dialogue of sorts going on between you and your art?
Obviously. When I'm inspired basically by human expressions, but the subliminal ones, not the ones which are like loud and obvious in your face.
So the
And
subtext.
Yeah. So I like to read between the lines of a human expression, and so when I'm working, I'm trying to make sure that I'm capturing this, you know, making sure that it's something that I'm capturing the essence of the human being that I'm working with. So each time as I'm working, I take a step back, you know, look at it, be sure that that message I'm trying to portray is right there, you know, before I just proceed. And
So you must have a very keen philosophical sense.
I try.
And do you do sort of portraits? I mean, like self-portraits, for example, look in a mirror and... Because there's some of those paintings that look rather like you, I have to say, but do you, I mean, how do you create those things? Do you take a photograph and say, okay, this is a photograph, I'm going to try and do this, or do you take photos and say, that's the right mood I want to sort of convey?
Okay, so first of all, when I first started, I used to take, I have never done a self-portrait, first of all.
Right, okay.
Maybe I'll do that later in life.
Sure.
But when I used to take photographs, I used to organize photo shoots with my models, and I actually don't use like models, I use like normal human beings on the road and stuff. And I started doing this, I'll organize a photo shoot and get people to take photographs, get the photographer to take photographs. Then I noticed that, I just said I'm looking for subliminal expressions. A lot of times the people are so self-conscious, so they're a little bit tensed up, and so at the end of the day we'll do a whole photo shoot and then maybe we'll get 300 pictures and only one speaks to me in the whole photo shoot. So I started just looking out for photographers who basically say the same kind of things that I'm looking for in their own work. And so I found a couple of them on Instagram and we do collaborations together. So
that's very interesting. And do you think that these extraordinary works, because beyond the photos that you get these people to take, I mean, your works take a life of their own, the expression, the as you said, the message that it communicates, extraordinary stuff.
Thank you.
Do you think that allows the rest of us to enter your mind and to understand who you are better, or is that not intended? Is it intended to understand the person in the picture better? Or is there a sort of...
It's intended to understand all of us.
Right.
Because as human beings, we tend to think that we're very different, whereas we're actually very similar. It's our experiences, we might look different, but our experiences are what binds us together, because I'm talking about a stranger, somebody you've never met. But by the time you stand in front of the piece and then you read the stories and then you try to ask yourself questions, who is this person? What is their story? Where are they from? Why do they have this look on their face? Why are they wearing this kind of clothes? By the time you ask all those questions, you find out that there's something similar to you and that person. So it's actually, I'm not trying to get you into my mind, but it's definitely something that cannot be avoided.
By extension.
By extension. I'm just trying to get you to see how we're actually not so different as people, we're not so different.
I notice that people who draw or paint find the process to be immensely therapeutic. I know the guy, for instance, this guy who was diagnosed with cancer, who said that painting portraits helped him get through the illness. In other words, something positive coming out of a difficult period in his life with a lot of honesty and directness and defiance in some ways as possible to convey his feelings. Do you find that work that you do therapeutic and in that sense part of a healing process for you personally?
I would say yes, and I would say no.
Right.
Because yes, in the sense that I'm doing what I love, what I absolutely
In other words,
love.
you can't find me right, but you can't find me wrong. So let's find a middle ground.
Yeah, I'm doing what I absolutely love to do. But then there are times when even me, who is creating magic in a sense, I have my own off days. Yeah, I have my own off days where the sun doesn't shine so bright, and then I have to look to other forms of art to get my own healing and therapeutic sense back. Yeah.
And that's a good point you made about magic, because for the rest of us who can't draw a stick man or woman, it is absolutely magical. Just so I don't forget, we're still chatting, obviously, with you. Where can we see your works if we wanted to? I mean, I know they're online, but is there an exhibition going on currently or coming up soon, or do they have a permanent home somewhere where they can be seen in real life?
At the moment, you can see my work on Instagram and then in Avant Gallery in New York. But then in Nigeria, I'm preparing for...
Okay, I'll get a ticket to New York then.
I'm preparing for a solo exhibition in January, at the end of January.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll look forward to that. And is there a central theme that runs through your art? I noticed that you've written that you are fascinated by the human form and its ability to express emotions and feelings in a very sort of real and non-verbal way. Is that the central theme, human beings visually expressing emotions and experiences?
Yes. I love body language.
Right.
I believe that a person can say a lot of things without opening their mouth. And when I meet people, that's the first thing I look out for, what their body is saying, not what their mouth is. Because with
Does
your
that make you judgmental? Oh my God, he's looking this way, or she's looking.
I actually try to not be judgmental, although sometimes you kind of cannot avoid it.
Yeah, of
you have
course.
to remind yourself you're being judgmental.
Yeah.
But I try,
Subjectivity
yeah.
means that you have to, you will sometimes
Yes,
be judgmental.
yes. But I try not to be judgmental, especially because I'm looking out for things that make a human being unique. I like the things that make a human being stand out, not things that make a human being blend. So when I meet somebody that has crazy hair, for example, people say it's crazy hair, but I think it's beautiful hair. And I meet someone that has crazy hair, and I'm like, okay, what's the story? Why do you decide to keep this hair, irrespective of the fact that society thinks that you're crazy? You know, why do you have all these tattoos on your body? Why do you have these piercings? Why do you dress like this? Why are you wearing all these colors? Why are you tying your hair like this? Why are you wearing all those big earrings? You know, I tend to look for the things that are not spoken in words.
But you don't actually ask them those questions. You simply observe.
I observe, and then
Right.
if I have the opportunity to meet the person, sometimes something can pick up my curiosity, and I walk up to them and I'm like, hello, I'm an artist. Why do you have this earring? Or I really love your earring, or I really love your hair. And especially hair. People have very interesting hair here. And I'm like, I really love your hair. What's the story? And they'll go, oh, before you know it, stories
Yes.
about the hair. And more inspiring material for me to take back home at the end of the day.
And breaking that central theme down, are there ideas of, for example, when you talk to those people, ideas of disillusion start to emerge, and lost innocence, and fatalism, failure, all of that? Are they sub-themes? Well, also joyfulness, celebration, all of that sort of emerge from that as well.
There are sub-themes always. But what I try to do is, because there's a lot of things to talk about, there's a lot of material in this life, and so I try to concentrate and sort of like zoom into something, So with my past body of work, I was talking about, identity, and with my new body of work, the exhibition is actually themed Now I Wear Myself. So I'm exploring more individual identity as against the generalization of identity of particular group of people. I like to try and focus and zoom into what makes us unique as Nigerians, how, and then I actually have this very serious curiosity about fashion and how the fashion industry in Nigeria is, literally exploded. And I'm trying to see how I can merge that with my work, and how, you can meet a human being wherever in the world and just know something about this person is Nigerian, So I'm trying to zoom into that at this point in time. But there's always I don't want to start telling you the ideas I have in my head, but yeah.
Please, tell us. But I mean, it's interesting. We've got about a minute or so before we have to take a break, but we'll keep talking with you. Just briefly tell us how you got into this, because I mean, you must have been doing it for quite some time now.
I've been practicing art professionally for 10 years, but I haven't been drawing for 10 years. I've been drawing for like 6 years professionally. When I studied art in school, I studied art, and I studied as a painter. I finished as a painter, and what I'm doing is almost far removed from using the brush and brush strokes, although I still paint my backgrounds, but not in a painterly way, And I was actually very, very inspired by drawing. I love the fact that, you can play with lines, and then I have this philosophy about lines and layering, and, I like to think that one line is your experience, and then when they're layered upon each other, experiences upon experiences, you have a person's character. So person A and person B.
That's pretty much what we are.
Yeah. So I have like this web work with my shading that I like to think kind of forms like the whole human being at the end of the day.
Very interesting. Stay with us.
Yeah.
You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the celebrated Nigerian ballpoint pen artist, Jacqueline Suowari. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Anyegolo. Now, it certainly can be said that it's been a good decade for the brilliant ballpoint pen artist and draftswoman Jacqueline Suowari. Her stunning pieces have appeared in some of the most highbrow exhibitions locally and internationally, including the New York Modern and Contemporary Art Fair, Art Miami in Florida, and exhibitions of contemporary artists in Lagos, Abuja and Port Harcourt, just to mention a few. She's taken part in and won art competitions and has had public engagements sponsored by the US Embassy here in Nigeria. She's also been a TEDx speaker and has been written of prolifically by both national and international publications. Not bad for a young lady who's barely out of her 20s. And the ballpoint pen artist and draftswoman Jacqueline Suowari is still with me in the studio. I didn't mean to drop you, make mention of that. But let's face it, you are a young lady. I mean, I'm rather intrigued by all your works, from Exhale to Of Burdens and Triumphs, and of course the absolutely infectiously effervescent, if you ask me, Ifechukwude. I just think it's just full of incredible life. It explodes with so much energy and joy. But I think I'm particularly drawn to What If, which reflects inner contemplations, particularly about child marriage. Tell us about that.
So the inspiration for What If came from an experience I had growing up. I was born in Zaria, in Kaduna State, Nigeria. Okay. And when I was growing up, in my class, there was this very pretty girl. Very pretty. I think she was from...
Is that her?
No, that's not her.
That's just
I couldn't find her, obviously, later. But she was very pretty, and I used to just be fascinated by how pretty she was. Long hair and everything. And then one day, we came to school, and she wasn't just in school. And I was worried, because we also were neighbors, And I went back and I went to her house and I asked her mom, I'm like, where is Miriam? Her name was Miriam. Where's Miriam? And they're like, she's in her husband's house. You can imagine me, I was in primary 4 or 5, something like that, and she's in her husband's house.
And that's an 11-year-old.
Confused, yes, I was confused. And so I was like, sorry, I don't understand. She's in her husband's house. Don't worry, one day you'll be in your husband's house. And I was just like, that was just I went back home and I told my mom, and she was like, don't worry, when you grow up you'll understand. And it was a very, very disturbing thing for me as a child. Because I couldn't imagine how Miriam would be feeling, what would be happening to her, I couldn't just imagine. She barely had breasts, barely.
So given that experience, is there a sense of a sort of Nigerian utopian vision gone wrong in your art? Certainly in that piece of artwork. Anything that you would say is perhaps overtly political in your art that makes it a sort of container of social ills, such as drug addiction, prostitution, poverty, child marriage, that sort of thing?
So the aim of my art is to first of all strike you as beautiful, as beautiful and amazing. Then that pulls you in, and then when it pulls you in, it's just like a beautiful song that you hear the lyrics and like, oh, this is beautiful. You hear the tunes and like, this is beautiful, and then they drag you in and you're forced to listen. And so when my art kind of draws you in, you're forced to listen, and then you ask yourself questions about what this story is about and how it affects you generally as a person, And so I guess in that sense, you can say it kind of mirrors the society, and because the stories I'm telling are stories from my life, from people who are close to me, my experiences, other people's experiences. And like I said, our experiences are what makes us unique and brings us together. We have that unity and uniformity in experiences as human beings. And so yes, definitely, I think I can say that. But generally, the first look you get, the first impression you get is, oh, this is beautiful, or it's a beautiful human being, but there's something always under it, yeah.
And when an idea for a work of art hits you, do you write it down or make rough sketches and something to that effect?
Both.
Right.
Both. Because sometimes you think, oh, I'll remember tomorrow, and then tomorrow you will search and
Yes,
search your
absolutely.
brain, and it's not there. Yeah.
And do you have lots of ideas in
Yes.
writing at one time? I mean, at any given time? And if
Yes.
so, give us an idea of the the next idea that's pending, perhaps?
Okay, so during the lockdown, I was trying to finish up this body of work for the next exhibition I'm having in Lagos, and I got another idea about exploring duality of personalities. You know how, as human beings, some people can tell you, "Oh, you're pretending because you were a certain kind of way somewhere," but you weren't pretending. That's just another like onion peel of you.
Yes.
You know, I like to look at human beings like onion peels, where you can just, you know, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, and everybody has different layers of who they are, and you can never really know a person like that completely, you know.
Well, they probably don't know themselves.
They probably don't even know
completely.
themselves. Yeah, exactly. So I got this idea about the duality of personalities, and just like, I need to do this now. And I'm like, but I have all this work to finish, you know. So yeah, that's like the next thing that's boiling
It's
in
not
my
sort of borderline schizophrenia.
Actually, I wouldn't.
I mean, not
say-
you, but you know, the human being that you're describing.
I wouldn't say
sort of.
that, because everybody working on the streets has, you know, I think maybe 3 or 4 personalities. You know, the ones. Let me just say, to just sum it up very fast, the ones you show people, the ones you show people who are close, the ones you show people at work, for example, the personality you show people who are close to you, personality that only you and yourself know exists, you know, and that's just 3 personalities, you know. So sometimes maybe you brought out one of your personalities from the one from the house.
Yes, of course, yeah.
You brought it at work, and everyone's like, I didn't know that you had this inside you, you know. And sometimes all those things. And as before, I used to be tempted to think, oh, this person is pretending. But I have come to realize that it's not pretense. It's just another layer of a person.
You know, it's amazing. I think it was the British philosopher Percy Shelley who said that writers, artists and poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. It's quite extraordinary, the things that you're saying. And when an idea presents itself, do you know what the finished form is going to be? Or is it a much more fluid process in your experience?
Sometimes I like to project and say, oh, this is how this work would be. These are the colors that would flow, you know. But sometimes when I'm actually putting on these colors, I find it doesn't really work. So I change it all up. And sometimes the work just takes you there, like holds your hand literally and says, I want to be like this. And you just follow it, and then it comes out.
Extraordinary. And do you find that sometimes you have an idea and then it dies a death, and then you come back to it months or years later, like a peak experience, and suddenly it flashes in front of you again?
Yeah, of course. Like, there are always ideas running through my head. There's some of them that are somehow premature. When you want to explore the idea, you feel like maybe it's not just the right time. Maybe the prospects aren't in the right place, you know. So you say, okay, I'll revisit this another time. And sometimes I never come back. Sometimes I might just come back, you know. That happens.
Right. And in the case of something like Of Burdens and Triumphs, which I thought was also fascinating, what was the spark for that? I mean, there is something that is at once almost heroic and apocalyptic about it.
First of all, when I saw the reference photograph, it was the wrinkles for me. The wrinkles were so beautiful. I was just like, these wrinkles are lovely. I have to draw them. And, you know, people tend to run away from old age. And, you know, old age is a blessing. It's such a blessing, you know, to live so many years, especially in this world that can be so fickle, you know, to live so many years. And then I feel like all those wrinkles, you know, I'm actually inspired by lines too. And I feel like all those wrinkles were like badges of honor, you know, that the man had acquired over the time in his life. And it reminded me of my grandparents at the time, you know. My grandparents, they were really, really old at the time. And I just, you know, had this endearing nature towards old people, just because I had to now sit back and study them and study their lifestyles and all the stories they're always telling, and how their life was like when they were younger, and how it's so far removed from where I am now. And I feel like old age is just a blessing. It's almost like every old person is like a huge box of history. and stories of depth
A
and
citadel
emotion.
of information.
Exactly.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And I have to say it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, it
Thank
has
you for
been
coming
too.
in.
Thank you for
Jacqueline
having me.
Suowari is the internationally acknowledged ballpoint pen artist and draftswoman. That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for watching.